think about the kind of Zen proverb that if you come in with a full cup, there's not much space to continue
Right.
learning.
Yeah. It was great fun delivering level 1 coaching with you last week. And
Wasn't it?
thanks for having a chat about it. I was
Yeah,
just
fab.
so curious about your, the way you describe your coaching background and your experience, and would love to share that with other people.
Yeah, and just so I guess just to kind of take it back. So I think what I was reflecting on was having now worked in this industry for a good amount of time now, so 8 years or 7 or 8 years, how much kind of emerges in terms of your kind of awareness of what's out there. And so one of the questions from the group is, where would you rate your kind of current practice? And I kind of told the group, and people are kind of surprised because I talk about there being so much more to learn. And so that kind of surprises people when you've been practicing for quite a long time.
Yes, I think you rated yourself way below most of the group, which was interesting.
Yeah, and I think thinking back, so I went through IACL's programs back in 2015, and when I came in hot off researching a lot about psychology, understanding a lot about kind of coaching in general, and I think I would have rated myself much higher at that point because you kind of feel like you know a lot of stuff, and but having gone through the programs with IACL, you start to realize that there's a lot more nuance to it. And I guess I always think about the kind of Zen proverb that if you come in with a full cup, there's not much space to continue
Right.
learning.
Yeah.
And so I think what's happened for me is just that cup has grown, and you've realized there's a lot more out there in the world that you still have to learn.
So the cup is actually bigger than you thought.
I think so. And my mindset's changed as well. I think that mindset that maybe I came into that first program with wasn't necessarily a beginner's mindset. And so that's one thing that's really evolved for me. And it evolved very quickly in that program because there were some real wake-up calls for me. I was working with the wonderful kind of Irene Booth at the time, and it really shone a light onto some blind spots that I had, particularly around my coaching practice and actually the kind of doing part of coaching that I maybe wasn't aware of. And I think since then I've been working really hard to kind of continually cultivate that idea of a beginner's mindset in everything that I do.
Fantastic. Yeah, I feel like with coaching, it's like the more you learn, the more you realize that you need to learn, which
Yeah.
it could be seen, I guess, as frustrating, but I actually think most coaches find that exciting because it's like, oh, there's more,
Absolutely, and you're always learning from every single time you work with somebody. In every engagement that you work with somebody, you learn a lot about yourself. I always think that if you're practicing kind of coaching professionally and doing the work that goes along with it, you're constantly reflecting on kind of how you're turning up in that relationship. And that's a fertile kind of learning ground for you to kind of continue to grow as an individual as well.
Yeah, so true. I think the real variety of different coaching counterparts that we work with and the different situations that they're in, within the organization or the culture or their situations, it's infinite variety. And as you say, you learn so much from them and how they respond to a coaching question. Everyone is so different. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Anything else you want to add?
Just because you'd mentioned this to me a couple of days ago and said, "Oh, we might have a conversation about this," and I was actually thinking about this idea of beginner's mindset and where did I first notice it in myself, beyond being a child, obviously as well. And I was thinking back, probably the first time I really noticed this idea of beginner's mindset was back in my undergraduate days because I studied chemistry in London, but the third year of that program was in Italy, and I had to do all of the course in Italy and learn Italian and pass all of the exams in Italian. And I remember how I immersed myself into that experience of going to Italy. I kind of told myself that I really wanted to just be a sponge just take in everything, all the nuance, pretend I didn't know anything about anything. And so kind of drop all of the assumptions. And what I found was that my experience of living in Italy was all the more rich because of that. I lived with locals. I learned Italian within a few months. I sampled all of the foods. I learned all of the kind of cultural rules and kind of the way that things were done. When you drink certain types of coffee, when you
important
not to mix pizza and pasta in a meal. Apparently, that's a big no-no. And so just kind of immersing yourself in almost like a child. And just kind of going, well, giving yourself that permission just to absorb everything that's available to you just makes the experience all the more rich. And so I think that just thinking about that, it's got me also now thinking about how I can apply that same level of almost kind of childlike innocence to the way in which we coach people, or the way in which we teach the classrooms, or the way in which we engage in our own learning as well as we grow, because that will make it all the more rich, and you'll get to sample all of the goodies that are available to us in life's experience.
I love that. I think it's fantastic. And I guess especially for people coming into coach training who've already been coaching for a while, or already done some other study elsewhere, it's particularly important to come in with that beginner's mindset, with the bowl or the cup not entirely full, leaving some room for new learning. Love it.
And to continue to build the foundations. When I think back, obviously having gone through all of the levels of IECL's programs and now being in the position to teach some of them, what I find is really interesting is every time I teach it, there's a new nuance to it, or a new way of looking at it, and the group's experience kind of builds that knowledge. And so there's a great kind of power that comes from revisiting things as well. And so that kind of constant revisiting is kind of firming up those foundations over time for me as well.
That's a great point. I noticed that last week as well, that I learned a lot, and I did my level 1 in the year 2000, so it's been a while, but yeah, it doesn't get old. Thank you so much. Been great to chat. I will let you go, and we'll talk soon.
Been fun.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.